Welcome back. My name is Birthroad, and today we are ranking the most popular anime studios. Now, I am only doing this as a top 10, and there is probably one big studio that is missing, and that is Studio Ghibli. Now, the reason why is because mainly they do movies. Also, they are the only studio on this list that I haven't seen anything of, so I didn't want to include them because of that. So, obviously, that's going to be the only big one that's missing. The rest of these are very big studios. There might be one or two other studios that are pretty big that didn't make it on this list, but that's also maybe because I'm just not as familiar with them. But let's get started straight away with number 10, and at our number 10 coming in last for the big studios, we have Ufotable. And my reasoning why is because they only have two popular anime. And for the most part, they look the exact same. Like, they are very similar. I will be honest, they do a great job at making both stories seem way better than they are. But I will be honest, I like Fate and Demon Slayer, but the animation praise that they do get for both of them is a little bit overrated. At the end of the day, if you go look at the animation, a lot of it really is just a lot of flashing lights and not really much choreography, which in my opinion is a lot worse than something with more choreography. Like, really in a lot of Demon Slayer and a lot of Fate, it's just a lot of bright lights clashing with each other, which to a lot of people does look good, but to me, I'm not the biggest fan of. However, the biggest reason why they are so far down isn't even because of that, because honestly, that really didn't have anything to do with the reason why I put it in last here. But the reason I put it in last is because they have two good shows, and honestly, I've seen some of Fate and Demon Slayer, and I will be honest, neither are like top tier shows, so yeah, they have two good shows, and neither are even close to being top 10 anime, so yeah, just definitely deserve it at the number 10 spot. Next, at number 9, we have a studio that is very popular, but I feel like isn't really, they don't live up to the name. We have Wit Studio. They are doing the One Piece remake. Now, Wit, I thought would have way more because they are a pretty popular studio. You know, I hear a lot of people talking about them. However, when you go look at the anime they made, there's not much. You have some parts of Attack on Titan. You have Spy Family, Vinland Saga, and Seraph of the End. That is pretty much it for like the really popular stuff they have made. They've made some other stuff that some people do consider good and all that. Like, they do have The Great Pretender and Ranking of Kings, which I personally think looks bad. But other than that, they don't have any other popular anime whatsoever. And so this is another one where it's like they are going to rank this low because they don't really have that much. However, I also am going to have it this low because something like Spy Family to me is not very interesting, and yeah, but I think the big reason is their catalog is very tiny in terms of like good shows they've produced. But now we'll move on to number 8. We have A1 Pictures. Now, A1 Pictures, they have done a lot of good anime, but they've also done a lot of bad anime. They've done a lot, and I mean a lot, of really popular anime. However, they've also ruined a lot of really popular anime, which is why I have it so low. They do have a lot, like Sword Art, for example. Sword Art started off amazing, and I get it. The manga kind of did this as well, so I can't really blame them entirely, but the second season was terrible. It was awful. They have Your Lie in April, which I've never seen, so I can't say. They have Erased, which is awesome. Seven Deadly Sins, which notoriously was very good at the start and then turned into one of the worst anime ever. Fairy Tail as well has some amazing moments and some of the worst moments in all of anime. Again, another anime that they have ruined, especially a lot of the filler is really terrible. Blue Exorcist, they took about a 12-year gap in between seasons to make it. So, yeah, they did Kaguya-sama, which I personally think is terrible. They did Solo Leveling as well, which is pretty cool. Maggie is cool as well. They did make Solo Leveling way better than it actually is. They did Mashle, which I thought was good as well. But a lot of the anime they do is like super hit or miss. Sometimes they do really good, and then sometimes they do really bad. Like, for example, I think they kind of fumbled Fairy Tail. I think Fairy Tail could have been way better, but a lot of the anime-only decisions they made were pretty bad. The pacing was pretty bad in Fairy Tail as well. And then, of course, something like Blue Exorcist, I mean, they didn't even drop the next season till, what, like 12 years later? It's a little bit ridiculous. They ruined Seven Deadly Sins. But then they have some anime that are really good, like Erased and Mashle. So, I don't know. A1 Pictures, to me, just seems like a very hit-or-miss studio. But now we'll move on to number 7 here, which we have Toei. Now, I know a lot of people may be surprised that Toei is this low. However, you got to go take a look at their catalog and you'll see exactly what I mean. Toei is deservedly known for doing One Piece and Dragon Ball. They have, however, done other stuff too. They did Yu-Gi-Oh!, they did Slam Dunk, they did World Trigger, and they did Evangelion. The problem that I have with Toei, and the reason why it ranks so low, is mainly a lot of anime only choices they've done within One Piece, Dragon Ball, hell, even World Trigger as well. Like, a lot of the things they have done for these anime that are not included in the manga is a little bit crazy. Like, Toei is known for taking a lot of stuff in One Piece and changing it in the anime. I mean, they do it with Sanji all the time. People call it out like, hey, Sanji's doing this, and he never did that in the manga, things like that. Like, they're known for doing that. They've done that with Dragon Ball as well. The pacing in both of those shows is pretty awful as well. Not to mention that, but another reason I have them so low is they're the only studio I know to remake 2 different anime that came out almost like not even 10 years ago. They're remaking Super and World Trigger. A little bit ridiculous. I mean, they did come out over 10 years ago, but it's literally like 11 years ago when both of them came out. A little bit ridiculous that they're already remaking that. They're the only studio I know that has had to remake 2 anime that have come out relatively recently. Like, it's kind of bad, not gonna lie. And the way they change a lot of their anime and the way they pace a lot of their anime, just not very good. But the reason they still go above all the other ones is because One Piece is still very good. Dragon Ball is still very good, right? And yes, they did make a lot of mistakes when it comes to them, but the stories that they adapted are still so good that, you know, they can let it slide a little bit, I guess. Now move on to number 6, which we have Period, and I have made videos on Period before on TikTok, and I'll be honest, I give them a lot of criticism, and I think very much deserved. Now, the reason they land in this spot, Period has some of the greatest titles ever. Naruto, Tokyo Ghoul, Bleach, Black Clover, GTO, Yu Yu Hakusho, they do Boruto, Yana of the Dawn, I think that's what it's called, Beelzebub. Like, they have so many good anime, right? However, they kind of don't, because let's be honest, if we're looking at the Period like list of anime they've done, I've looked at this before. How many anime have they done that have been, well, successful, at least to my eyes? Naruto is more popular than the manga. I would call that successful. Yu Yu Hakusho, extremely well done. It was like it was probably the first big anime they ever got, and they did not disappoint. But other than that, what anime have they done that you can really sit there and say is a massive success? Yeah, you could say Bleach 1000 Year if you, not include it with the original Bleach. But if you look at the original Bleach, the manga is still a million times better. And I get a lot of people are going to say the source material is always going to be better. But honestly, that's not true. Naruto, the anime, is way more popular than the manga. So they clearly know how to make an anime good. I get at that time, Bleach probably didn't get the resources because it all went to Naruto. But look at Tokyo Ghoul. They ruined Tokyo Ghoul as well. Black Clover, I would say, is relatively successful as well. I forgot to include that. But like GTO, for example, that's one of their highest rated anime they've ever done. Except they just adapted a random part of the story. Not a random part, it was when he first became a teacher or whatever, but there's way more parts of the story before and after that, and they just picked a random part in the story and adapted it. I would say not really successful. Boruto is known as one of the worst anime ever. They did Platinum End, also known as one of the worst anime ever. I think Period has a lot of struggles. They did Kingdom as well, which is known to be pretty shit. Ghost Stories was pretty shit. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of the anime they do are not very good. And it's not to hate on them per se, but I think a lot of what they got was they got a lot of good stories given to them. Like, it is so hard to mess up Bleach and Naruto. Now, I will say they did a good job with Naruto. Bleach, they did not. The Bleach manga is a million times better than Bleach, but of course the anime is still going to be popular because the story is so good. But like Tokyo Ghoul, an amazing story, they did somehow ruin, which is why they make it this low, but they do still have to be high because they have produced some of the greatest anime ever in Naruto, in Black Clover, in Yu Yu Hakusho, and even people would include Bleach, but I do think Bleach has a lot of issues that are anime only, but some people would still include it, so that's why it goes this high. Next up at number 5, smack dab in the middle, we have Mappa. Now, people have controversial opinions about Mappa because for a while they're being glazed as like the best studio, and let's be honest, they've never been the best studio. Let's just make that clear right now. But people then call them, oh, Mappa's not even that good, this and that. The thing about Mappa is they are very, I don't want to say mid, because some anime, God, they treat amazingly. Like when they did the final season of Attack on Titan, that went very well. Jujutsu Kaisen, honestly, I think is better than the manga. Chainsaw Man, they did incredibly well as well. But then they have some shows that they've done that they've just absolutely ruined, like The God of High School, for example. I don't know what they were thinking when they adapted The God of High School, but for context, The God of High School anime, it's 12 episodes and covers 120 chapters. The average chapter in The God of High School is about 100 pages. That is over 1,000 pages adapted in 12 episodes. You should see how there's a problem with that. Some anime they do just absolutely ruin. And then some of them they do very well. Like Lazarus, I thought could have been a lot better. They did not do the greatest with that. Dorohedoro, yes, they finally dropped season 2, but they waited so long. Like, there's just a lot of stuff they've done that could be better, and they also do take on a lot of anime, especially nowadays, that just aren't really that good, which does hurt their score, which I get you could say is not the studio's fault, but at the same time, why are you making these anime that you know just suck? So I have it in the middle because they do actually have more good shows than they do bad shows. However, they do drop the ball on some good source material that they get, which is why they land here. Also, their animation isn't that special to me. Then move on to number 4, which we have David Production. They do JoJo's and Fire Force. Now, it's a little unfair to have David up here because they do an incredible job. They do Undead Unluck as well. The thing with David Productions is they kind of just started. If you go look at the anime they've done, there really isn't that much. I think the oldest anime they did was what, maybe Level E? No, is that not the oldest anime they've done? I don't know, it might not be, but if you go look, and I can literally tell you the numbers on here, the anime they have done for shows, they've only done 28 shows ever, and all these other studios have done hundreds. David's only done 28. They are fairly new, but they've done an amazing job with JoJo's and Fire Force and Undead Unluck, which are probably their 3 biggest shows, and they've done an amazing job with all of those. Now, you could say the release schedule and things like that of JoJo's kind of sucks, and yeah, I would agree. Hell, even the last season of Fire Force, they did that as well, which kind of sucked, but other than that, I mean, I do think the shows that they do, like the quality of it is very amazing, but it is a little unfair because they don't have much to go off of. And now we move into the top 3. These 3 studios to me are levels ahead of all the other ones we did. But at number 3, we have Sunrise. Sunrise did Code Geass, Cowboy Bebop, Gintama, Inuyasha, like so much. Like there's so much I can read here. And I haven't watched all the shows that Sunrise has done. However, something I can say is almost every single Sunrise show, well, every single Sunrise show I have personally seen has been absolutely amazing. But all the ones that I've also heard of on here are actually very successful. Now, they did a lot of old ones back in the day that, I'll be honest, I've never heard of, and maybe they're good. I don't know. Like, I'm looking at this one right now called The Big O. I've never heard of The Big O. That's what we call our friend Omar. Like, I don't know what The Big O is about, right? But a lot of their anime, they have done a lot of anime that is extremely popular. And even though I haven't seen it, they have been very successful. So that's what I will say is that, like, at least Sunrise's anime are all, for the most part, very successful. And the ones I have seen are some of the greatest anime ever. Code Geass, Cowboy Bebop are both top 10 anime. They are absolutely beautiful and fantastic. So that's why I have Sunrise so high, because they really do not disappoint. But now we'll move on to the top 2. And the top 2, honestly, I kind of want to put tied for first because they both are so good at so many different things. And it is so hard to determine it. But at number 2, which if you want it number 1, I get, but we have Madhouse. Madhouse did Death Note, One Punch Man, Hunter x Hunter, No Game No Life, Parasite, Death Parade, Overlord Monster, Frieren. Like, there's so much to list on here. They have done so many anime that not only are extremely popular, but they've done anime. They've saved anime. Their only real big mark on here is probably something like they did Claymore, and Claymore, the anime, was an absolute flop. But if you look at the rest of their anime, like, a lot of them are honestly way better than their manga is, right? Like, a lot of these they did incredibly well on, and I am still scrolling and I'm still seeing extremely popular anime. Like, I'm about halfway through their list and I just saw Kaiji or whatever it's called. Like, that is an extremely popular. Gungrave I've heard of as well, and I'm still scrolling and I'm still seeing shows that I've heard of. Like, that is how good they are, bro. That they have just so many different titles you can look at. They obviously have some of the most inspiring titles ever. By the way, they did not do One Punch Season 3, so yeah, that's not a stain on them. But they did Hunter x Hunter, One Punch, Death Note, like all the ones that I named. Some of my favorite anime of all time come from Madhouse. And I think what makes Madhouse so special, and the reason why they could be number 1, is I think they are the best at adapting stories. I'll be honest, the One Punch anime is great. Death Parade is great. Frieren is great. They're so good at adapting the story. Their animation, I'll be honest, isn't anything special. But the way they adapt things is insane. And honestly, a big thing to me is Nana. Nana was a manga that, if I'm not mistaken, got canceled. And when the anime came out, the anime is super popular, super highly rated for something that people didn't really care about book-wise. They care about it now because of the anime, let's be honest. But the anime is way more popular than the manga for Nana, and they did something amazing with that. Other than Claymore, everything they've adapted has been beautiful. They did Hajime no Ippo as well. And don't get me wrong, the manga for that is great. However, they put all that emotion into the anime. They are so good at adapting the story. It is honestly insane. Their only real mark is Claymore. But now I'll move on to number one, my personal favorite studio, and really, you could swap Madhouse out for this if you prefer Madhouse, but for me, number one is very easily Bones. Not only do they create incredible stories as well, but they've always been the pioneer of animation, which people, like to think that's Mappa or Ufotable, like for Demon Slayer or like JJK, Chainsaw Man and stuff, but no, Bones has always been the best studio when it comes to animation. Always, 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 and always will be, in my opinion. For example, shows back then, for when let's talk about some of the shows they have. They have Full Metal Alchemist, My Hero Academia, Mob Psycho, Noragami, Soul Eater, Bungo Stray Dogs. Like, if you pick out any of these anime, let's go with Soul Eater. Go look when Soul Eater came out, which I believe was 2008 or 2009. There was no show that looked nearly as good as it, or even half as good as it. You can do the same with Full Metal. You can do the same with My Hero. You can do the same with Mob Psycho. Every time Bones drops an anime, the animation is a million times better than everything else coming out at the time. They are the standard for animation, and that is why I have them so high. Not only are they the standard for animation, they also only produce bangers, just like Madhouse. Like, I'm about halfway through the list and just got to Gachakuta, bro. Like, they produce so much bangers that is honestly, like, insane. Like, so yeah, I think they're very good at, making stories like Madhouse is as well, but they are the standard for animation, in my opinion, and that is why I do believe they are the animation studio that deserve number one. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe. I upload anime videos 3 times a week and would love to see you guys again. Let me know what your favorite anime studio is. Obviously, some were missing, like the romance studios that I know, like Cloverworks. That's a studio, right? Or is it, I don't know. There's some that really only do like romance stuff. I haven't seen any romance, so they just don't make it on here. Not that they would anyway. It's not like their animation is that good or anything. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, just make sure to leave a like, subscribe. Hope to see you guys later. Peace.